Okay, still got a few people joining, but we'll get started. So my name is Emma Prince. I'm one of the heads of learning here at Worthing College, and here to just introduce the Aspire programme webinar to you this evening. Just a few housekeeping notes, just to remind you that the session is being recorded. It will be shared with you afterwards. We have a question and answer function. I'll be monitoring those and coming back to them at the end of the presentation. If you do have any tech issues, just pop them into the chat, and we'll try to sort them out as we go through. So I'm joined by Stephen Foden, the Aspire coordinator this evening, and we have some past and current students who will talk to you about their experiences with the Aspire programme. If we could go on to the next slide, please. So just an overview of the evening. Stephen's going to talk you through the Aspire programme. We've got some input from current students to give you their experiences of what's happened this year. And we've got some alumni students who have gone on to bigger and better things, and they will be talking to you about how Aspire got them on their pathway that they're following now. And as I said, we'll come to some questions and answers at the end. So I'm going to hand over now to Stephen to take you through the rest of the evening.
Thank you, Emma, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for taking your time out this evening to join us. As Emma says, we're just going to take you through the Aspire programme and just tell you a little bit about it. And the first thing I should say is this is a programme that is for students who want to aspire to challenging university courses, to challenging careers, but it is open to everybody. So this is an open access programme. Anyone is eligible to come on it, and it is there to benefit anybody in their aspirations for their future, whether that's university, whether that's apprenticeships, or a career. So the bias tonight will inevitably be towards university, because our current students have got plans to go to university and our alumni students are currently at university. But I wouldn't want you to think that's the only thing that we help our students to aspire to. We appreciate that students have got lots of aspirations to which we want to support. So if I could just have the next slide, please. And in fact, if you can move on to the next one. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit now for about sort of 10 minutes, just like less than 10 minutes, about the Aspire programme. And I'm going to talk to you about sort of 5 elements to it. And we'll pick some of these elements up in the conversations that we have with our current and also our ex-students. I'm going to talk to you about the 5 elements of the Aspire programme, which collectively make up the offer that we offer to students at college. They are the CUP, which I'll talk to you briefly about shortly. They are the EPQ, and I will explain what these acronyms stand for. I'm going to talk about the Aspire lectures, and then in between the present students and the ex-students, I'm going to say a little bit about UCAS. That's the preparation for university in terms of preparation and application. So next slide, please. Okay, so starting with the monthly Aspire lectures. So we have a programme of monthly lectures from academics, from people in business, from people with an interesting background. And the idea of these is that once a month there is a visitor to the college who will talk to us on a topic of their interest. Now, as you can see from the slide there, this is a range of Aspire talks that have happened over the course of a number of years. That's not just this year's presentations. The introduction to medicine, you can see at the bottom there, was this year. We were due to have one today, which was the use of historical sourcing in academic study of history, but the speaker had to cancel because she was off sick. But I will rearrange that one. I've got one happening in a week or so's time on sport physiology and psychology, and one on English happening in a few weeks time, and one on the role of sociology. So there are a wide range of courses. They can be on any number of topics. Students will opt into them as they see fit. It may be of a direct interest. So, for example, the one that you can see about sort of 3rd or 4th from the top there, sort of 5th from the top, are we in a biodiversity crisis? That took place in the latter part of last term. And in fact, Jeremy, who's going to speak later on, was at that talk, because it is an area of interest for him. We've had talks from university tutors, we've had talks from students at university in their hall of residence. And so the idea is to give us broader base of interest as we can. And it's the sort of thing that ignites a student's interest. It's the sort of thing that students can dive in a little bit more detail about. They're not all of interest to all students, but I think there's something for everybody during the course of the year. They happen once a month and they're on Wednesday afternoons. So that's one of the aspects of Aspire, probably the sort of lowest level of commitment that students need to make in terms of Aspire. It's once a month and it can be even less than that. But if you're interested in the Aspire and you put your name down for Aspire programme, I will send you invitations to every one of these, and then you can accept them if you wish, and you can attend. Most of them these days are in person. Obviously, for the last couple of years before that, we tended to have them online, but now they're in person. Okay, if we could have the next slide, please. Now, a really useful thing for students who are thinking of going to either competitive universities or want to just put something enriching on their personal statement or their CV is the extended project qualification. This is an opportunity for students to dive into something in far more detail than their A-levels will allow them to study. It's a topic of their choice. And again, the students who we're going to speak to tonight will talk a little bit about the extended project qualification. It gives you a very, very brief but a tantalising glimpse of what it's like to study at university. If you write a dissertation, you write a 6,000 word, 6,500 word dissertation, which is far and away bigger than any piece of writing most students have done up to that point, and probably they won't do anything like that until they get to the first or even second year of university. So 6,500 word dissertation, a 3,500 word investigation or an artifact or a performance. They'll get an advisor who is subject specific, and it is worth half an A level. So an A grade in an EPQ is worth 24 UCAS points, which is half the UCAS points of an A level. It is well respected by almost every university. Now, not every university will take the points necessary as part of the tariff, but they do like students to have done EPQs, and I think some of that benefit will come out shortly when we talk to the students about it in more detail. Could I have the next slide, please? So the CUP, the Competitive University Preparation Programme, is exactly what it says. If your son or daughter is thinking of applying to a university which could be described as competitive, and by competitive we tend to mean university degrees which have more applicants than there are places. In other words, these are the selecting universities rather than the recruiting ones. Put simply, although not exclusively, these will be the 24 Russell Group universities, but it will also include some of the others as well. Our nearest Russell Group university here is Southampton, with whom we have really strong connections, especially on things such as the EPQ. And in the CUP, we will meet every week. So this is a far bigger commitment if you want to take part in this. We'll meet once a week where we'll develop skills, we'll develop experience, we'll develop personal qualities, we'll develop resilience that you're going to need to make a successful application to a competitive university. That might be Oxbridge, it might be medicine, dentistry and veterinary science, or it might, as we'll see later on, it might be psychology degree, or it might be applying to a Russell Group university. So the Competitive University Preparation Programme puts you in a strong position to make a successful application to universities and to degree courses for which there is an enormous amount of competition. You're not trying to beat the other candidates, but what you're trying to do is put yourself in the best light possible by having the kinds of experiences that are going to enrich your life anyway, but are also going to look very, very good and positive on a personal statement. Okay, next slide, please. Right, so I'd like now to introduce two current students. So if Jeremy and Ella, would you mind putting your cameras on, please, and putting your microphones on so we can see and hear you? Jeremy and Ella are current Year 13 students. They took part in the Competitive University Preparation Programme. They also did an extended project, and it would be really useful to hear from them. So I'm going to ask them a series of questions for about the next 15 minutes. And hopefully that will give you a kind of a student's eye view of their experience. So hopefully you can see and hear Jeremy and Ella. Let me start. Ella, can I ask you the first question? How did you find the transition from school to college?
Academically, it is definitely a step up. The workload of A-levels in year 12 is definitely a lot more than it was at GCSE, and it really took me about I'd probably say the first term for me to properly start organising my time and get into the swing of things. As for the transition socially, the classes are a lot smaller than they were for me personally at high school, so I found that quite nice actually. The social transition wasn't as hard as it was academically.
Yeah,
But
that makes sense.
yeah.
Jeremy, what about you? Transitioned academically and socially from Durrington High.
I agree. I feel like when you get to college, you realize you have a lot more freedom. My problem is because I loved having the structure of 5 lessons every day, all the time, at school, and then generally a a club after school. When I got to college and I realized I actually had a whole day off, and one day I was only in for 1 lesson, it kind of threw me off because I wasn't sure what to do with myself. So as much as that's a bit scary at first, I think, as Ella said, once you get to like October half term, you've got a taste for what college is like and how you act in it. And then I think from October to December, you start to work out how to fill your time with the most productive things. And so what I had to learn was how to decide things for myself and build my timetable in the best way possible, to make sure that I was doing all my work in the right time, but also giving myself periods to rest and do less college work, because as Ella said, there is an academic jump and it's manageable, but it takes people different amounts of time. And for me, it was the same in second year. From first to second, it took me that first term to kind of get to grips with everything again.
Yeah, and casting your mind back, both of you, now to that first term when you joined the cup lessons. So Ella, what can you think of anything particularly that you found useful in those early cup lessons that helped you prepare?
I think one of the most useful thing for me personally was when we started, I think it was the very first lesson I ever went to in CUP, was when we were looking at all the different types of universities and what they expect from you. So I know there was the differences between, for example, like red brick and modern universities. I hope that's the right one. But the ways in which you would go about going to one of those universities and how different they are. And I think that was really good for me in deciding like then and there kind of where I wanted to go and like planning a route moving forward.
Yeah. Jeremy, what about you?
Yeah, I think it was helpful for me to start thinking early on about, the idea of going to uni and what the early part of the process looks like, because I know when I was in year 11, you said the word UCAS to me. I had no idea what you meant. And even for the first bit of year 12, it was kind of daunting. So actually, the good thing about Aspire in those early sessions was in CUP was we were kind of getting to grips with where we start. It's like the first rung of the ladder is introduced to you. And as Ella said, having all the different unis mapped out for me and being able to look into where I would actually want to start going was a really great way to begin. Not necessarily having to pick a course or deciding exactly what I wanted to do, but what I wanted uni to look like. So I had a bit of an image in my mind, a goal to work towards.
Yeah, sounds to me like one of the pieces of advice you'd give students is start thinking about it early. But if I could ask you again, Ella, what advice would you give students who are starting year 12 that they should be doing right from the start to put them in a good position to make an application to uni?
I think definitely making the most effective use of your time. I don't mean necessarily sacrificing your social life and using every single free period that you have to complete your work, but getting things in on time and meeting the deadlines so that you can complete all of your work whilst you're in college and you don't have to pull all-nighters. That will put you so much more ahead for when you have to do your summer mocks, which are used to for your predicted grades, so that you're not cramming revision all at once. You've gradually done it throughout the year. That's my best advice. And also prioritizing your mental health. Don't stress out in like the very first few months. You will get into it, and whilst the workload may seem like a lot at the very start, it does eventually get manageable.
Jeremy, any advice from you for those early weeks of year 12?
Yeah, I think I did worry that I had to, that my early college experience had to look a certain way and I had to be doing all of this work and I had to be looking at uni and stuff. And as I said, it's important to prepare, but it was also important for me to allow myself the space and time to ease into college. One of the things that, as Ella said, really helped me was making sure that I did the work when it was set and I didn't leave it until the night before, and I was able to plan. And so I think practice in planning is really, really useful, because if you get that solid schedule down before Christmas and you've got that really good organizational system, it will really help you. One of the things I regret not doing earlier is kind of doing my topic summaries and starting making revision materials, because when you get to exams, you suddenly realize quite how much you've covered in such a short space of time. And so kind of giving yourself those things to fall back on for revising in the summer is really useful. So stay on top of things and yeah, just plan everything.
Yeah, I'm conscious of time and I really want to give you the chance to talk about the extended project. So I'm going to turn our attentions to that now. So Ella, if you would lead off on this one, do you want to just tell people what an EPQ is from your point of view? How would you describe it? And then tell people a little bit about the EPQ that you actually did, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay, so fundamentally, the EPQ is a research project into literally any subject that you want within reason. It doesn't have to relate to your A levels or relate to what you'd like to do at university, but you look at a subject, an area of interest, and you research it in depth, and you answer either a question that you've created or a hypothesis that you've proposed. All within 6,000 words or an artifact as previously explained. My EPQ was completely irrelevant to my A-level subjects. It was more so an area of interest that I really wanted to research into in my own time, and I looked at animal testing in the medical industry and the likelihood of it being replaced in the near future. But I think I've covered everything.
Brilliant. Jeremy,
yeah.
Jeremy, do you want to say a little bit about what yours was about, and then we'll go on to talk about how it might have helped you? So tell everybody about your EPQ.
So mine was based on what I would like to do at uni. As Ella said, it doesn't have to be, but I kind of followed my biological interests. As Stephen said, I was interested in the in one of the talks we had earlier on in the year. I wrote mine specifically on plant hormones and communications between root systems, to put it simply. As Ella said, it is a really in-depth piece of research, so you really get to delve in deep and find out basically anything you want to. So I really enjoyed learning all of this new stuff and writing about it and specializing in a niche topic. So that's what I got to do. I got to research and prepare myself to kind of learn how I would learn at university by delving into this massive pool of loads of knowledge that at the start I had no idea what was being said. But after the first couple of weeks of reading things, I learned more and I understood new terminology. And so it helped me not only gain an understanding of that specific topic, but an understanding of how to learn more in general in a new way that isn't led by teachers so much. It's purely self-led.
Yeah, and Ella, I know it wasn't directly relevant to your chosen career, but do you think doing the EPQ has helped you in any way?
Oh, massively. I think it's helped me in the sense that I now sort of know what to expect when carrying out undergraduate research at university. I'm well prepared to now carry out massive, 6,000 word dissertations. I also developed the skill of learning how to reference and cite academic sources, and also where I can access these sources. But I also think that one of the most important things I learned from doing the EPQ was how to manage my time, because as Jeremy said, it's all independent and self-led. So if you don't use your time effectively, it can get on top of you. And I think that's a skill that I will definitely be taking with me to university.
Do you think there's anything that people should be wary of before they consider taking an EPQ? Anything to warn people about?
I think that, as I've just said, using your time as best you can. You have the hourly lessons each week, but you have to carry out work outside of college, and putting off that work and only relying on the 1 hour you have a week with your coordinator, it doesn't really work. You have to put the graft in, and also making sure that you prioritize your A levels alongside doing the EPQ, because it is something extra. It can seem like they are the same importance, and whilst it is important, you have to really prioritize your A levels whilst not also falling behind with the EPQ.
Yeah, Jeremy, anything to add in terms of how it's helped you, or any words of warning that you might want to give people?
Yeah, so I think my biggest struggle with the EPQ was keeping it concise enough to be able to only write 6,000 words. One of the things you'll find when you start writing essays at university is, and even college, is that you get given a word count which sounds massive, and then before you know it, you've gone well over it. And so what I had to learn was how to do all the research and then look at specifically what I needed. So they're very different skills, being able to read and draw out what's interesting, and then from that filter through what's necessary and what you need for your question. And as I said, a lot of it was learning how to learn. And so what I would be wary of is make sure that you give yourself the time and the confidence to look at something and understand that actually at first you probably won't understand it, but I would just say it's a bit cringy, but trust the process and just know that you'll get to a point where you understand it all, and all of a sudden you'll look back on what you've written and go, this is incredible. And as Ella said, you need to focus on your A levels. That's what's important. But actually doing the EPQ helped me in doing my A levels, and I'm doing my English coursework now. And writing that essay has been helped by doing the EPQ. But it's just really rewarding, like having a look at a massive essay you've written that's really academic and going, I wrote that. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you for that. We're coming towards the sort of tail end of this section now, but I want to talk to a little bit about your plans for university specifically. So, Ella, would you lead off on this again, please? Just tell us where you're thinking of going, and how did you decide on the universities to apply to?
Well, I'm hopefully heading to Southampton to study geography. But for deciding universities, I knew that I wanted to go somewhere that was good for the course that I wanted to do. So that was the most important thing. And I knew that I also wanted to stay within the area on the south coast. But also, I think looking at the rankings, I know it may sound a bit superficial, but looking at the league tables of how good the quality of teaching is, what the research is like, life at university as well, that was really the key role in deciding where I wanted to go. And luckily, Southampton being on our doorstep was also one of the best ones for me. And also looking at the surrounding area, because if you're going to move away, you're going to live there. And I wanted to go somewhere that not only supported me academically with the university, but also socially and with my well-being.
Which, of course, Southampton is exceptionally strong on. Yeah. Jeremy, do you want to say similar? Where are you going and why did you choose the university that you've chosen?
Yeah, so I chose to go to Leeds. That's my top choice. I just accepted my uni offers last night. I put Leeds as my first choice and Nottingham as my insurance. And I kind of had the opposite goal to Ella. I wanted to go away. I'm not so interested in the beach. I love a good city. So I wanted to go somewhere city based, but not quite London, because London gets maybe a bit too busy and a bit too expensive for a uni student. So I think going somewhere like Leeds or Birmingham or Manchester, if you want that city vibe without the massiveness of it, is a great option. So I looked around Leeds, and I think it's important to go and have a look at unis, because if you look at unis on the website, but then you go to them, it's an entirely different feel. And that was what I was looking for when I picked a uni. It was a place that I looked at and I walked around and I felt like it was right for me. And so I'm going there to study biology. And yeah, as I said, Leeds, it's great for its biology department. It is a Russell group, and as well as the academics, again, it handles the social side really well. The student union is really supportive, and it has plenty of opportunities to travel abroad as well, which is another thing I'm really interested in, doing second year somewhere else. Look at the placements as well and the connections a uni has. That's really important, considering how you can kind of boost the start of your jobs by using industry connections that your uni already has.
Fantastic. That's been really useful and really interesting to hear about what you've experienced at college, but also a sense of the excitement that you've got for your future steps. So thanks ever so much for that, both of you. It's really exciting to hear you talk about it and the energy and the enthusiasm you put in it. You're obviously welcome to stay for the rest of the evening if you wish. Your part of the contribution is over, so you can turn your cameras and your microphones off and breathe a sigh of your relief if you want. Thanks ever so much. If we could have the next slide, please. There's a couple more slides I'd like to just talk you through just very briefly for about one or 2 minutes before we get our ex-students in to talk to us. So we talked about university just briefly there with our 2 current students. So I want to just talk you through the ways in which the college will support students towards making university applications, in particular the Aspire, but also just generally the college will do this. Only this afternoon I sent some information to all 56 current Aspire students about the Sutton Trust summer schools, which are taking place in August at University of Cambridge. They're all free, which is an amazing opportunity to spend a week at a college in Cambridge studying a particular subject with Cambridge University lecturers. They're completely free for students who attend state schools and state sixth form colleges, and I sent the information for those off this very afternoon to the students who are on Aspire this year. So there's plenty of opportunities, whether that's summer schools, whether it's open days. I took 15 students to the University of Oxford on the 20th of January just a few weeks ago. We went to St John's College, Oxford, who hosted us for the whole day. We spent the morning at St John's. We had lunch in Hall. We went to the Bodleian Library in the afternoon and a wander around, and it was just a fantastic opportunity. I'm going to take students to Oxford, Cambridge and Southampton during the summer for open days. There's plenty of opportunities for us to take part in, lots of opportunities to support students in their preparation for university. And if we could just move on to the next slide, please. So students may want to take part in what's called the early applicant group. This is for students who are applying to Oxford or Cambridge, or for medicine, dentistry and veterinary science, because they have a deadline of the 15th of October, which is significantly earlier than the 26th of January that every other UCAS applicant has. So it's significantly earlier. It tends to be more complex. There are admissions tests to take, and also the possibility of interviews, particularly for things such as medicine, veterinary science, and also Oxford and Cambridge. So we have an early applicant support group that meets once a week from about the second half of the spring term. So we're going to start that in a few weeks' time for this year's early applicants. We're just coming to the end of the UCAS cycle. As Jeremy said, he just accepted his offer, first an insurance place. Your son or daughter will have a UCAS advisor and an opportunity to attend a UCAS session, preparation for tests and mock interviews. So all our students that had interviews this year for early applicants had a minimum of 2 practice interviews. Some had 3, and that helps them just to prepare for those interviews, because they can be quite difficult. They can be quite daunting. And we start our applications on the day they open. So with my early applicant group, we start the application on the day that UCAS opens, and we spend at least 3-4 months making that application, because it can take time to get it the best that it possibly could be. So as part of Aspire, then, just to sum that bit up, as part of Aspire, we will support your daughter or your son to make a successful application to university, regardless of where they want to go, the course they want to do. We'll give them all the support and the help they need. And now, if we could have the next slide, we can turn our attention to our past students, our alumni students. So I'm hoping they're both here. So if Felicity and Megan wouldn't mind switching on their cameras and their microphones, and I'm going to ask them a series of questions and just see if we can enlighten you a little bit more about experience post-college and at university. So could I have a quick hello from Felicity? Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Straight from a university lecturer, I think, haven't you? You come straight from the lecture hall.
Yeah, I rushed back.
Okay, well, thanks for doing that. And Megan, hello.
Hello.
Hi. So thank you very much for giving up your time this evening. You're speaking to us from your university, so perhaps we ought to tell everybody where you are and what you're doing. So Felicity, would you mind starting off? Where are you and what are you studying?
I'm at the University of Exeter, and I've come here to do a degree in psychology. However, my course has a clinical aspect as well, because my final year will be a clinical placement.
And what's the lecture you just had?
It was a statistics one, unfortunately.
Oh, wow. So quite heavy.
Yeah.
Okay. Megan, where are you and what you're doing?
I'm at the University of Southampton doing biomedical science.
And how's that going?
It's going well.
Hard work?
Yeah, but I did half expect that.
Yes, yeah, okay. So obviously we're trying to give some people advice about university and how to apply and so on, and obviously they're in year 11, they've got GCSEs to come up, so it's going to feel a long way off. But could you give us any advice about the sorts of things you did in year 12 that put you in a really strong position to make your application? So Felicity, would you mind fielding that one first? Advice for students in year 12 for making a strong university application?
Yeah, I would say it's just about getting involved and sort of being active or actively looking for opportunities, because when you first come into college, it can obviously, you're trying to get used to your A level, so it can be quite overwhelming, but just keeping up to date with emails and looking at things that you're being told about can really help. So for example, one of the things that I did was an online work experience. And I was just looking for general things relating to a psychology degree, and I just happened to find that. So I feel like if you actively go out looking for opportunities, then it can be a really positive way to sort of start off.
Yeah. So take the opportunities that come up as they come up, because that builds your experience, builds your personal statement and so on.
Yeah, definitely. And especially in year 12, I feel like because you're slightly less busy than year 13 when you have got exams coming up and more revision, year 12 is your opportunity when you've got slightly less on to be able to do a work placement or, you know, enter a competition or something like that, because you've got a bit more time to do so.
Yeah, that's a good point. Megan, what would you say in response to the question, you know, what advice to give people in that year 12 time?
Yeah, very similar to Felicity, but I didn't always want to apply to biomedical science. I originally wanted to do veterinary medicine. So especially if you're applying to competitive programs like that, definitely get the work experience in. You need to show them why you are so interested in this topic, because there are hundreds of other people that want to go to that same university. You really need to show them why you are so passionate about this, and really just get in any experience you can as early as you can, just to maximize your aspects of getting into that course.
Yeah. My next question to both of you is how you went about deciding on where to go. So, you know, you ended up at your chosen university. So how did you go about choosing where to apply? Felicity, would you field that one first, please?
As previously mentioned, I started off looking at the league tables as well for my course. I don't think you should solely base your decision off of that, but it was just a good for me to narrow down into what 10 am I going to look at, into what 5 am I going to look at. And then beyond that, I really chose this university based off of the course specifically, because not all of them do the exact same course. And also I looked at the particular modules and optional aspects to the course, because different unis offer different psychology courses and not all of them are going to present the exact same modules. For example, here we do a module in animal behaviour that they don't do at other universities. So I sort of chose mine on more of the specifics of the course and then the university complemented it after that.
It sounds to me like one of the things you found is that whilst 2 degrees might have the same title, their content was very different. Is that the case?
Yeah, definitely. For psychology, because it's an accredited course, there's a fair amount of similarity across universities. But for other people in my flat, for example, who do politics, there might be quite a lot of variation in some of those courses across different universities. So it really is worth looking at the specifics, because some universities might be interested in more modules than others, and it can work out like that.
Yeah. Megan, what about you? How did you decide upon the university you went to and the course that you finally landed on?
Yeah, so once I decided that I was more interested in science, I knew Southampton was a great university. So I came on an open day and I was just instantly drawn to how almost cozy it is in a way, because it's a campus university, so everything is really close together. It's very pretty, it's very green, but their science department is incredible. You know, the lecturers are so passionate about what they're teaching you that it just makes you think like, yeah, I can picture myself here. And again, league tables, you shouldn't really base it off of that, but you know, Southampton is pretty good in that aspect too.
Yeah. One of the most challenging parts of applying to university is writing your personal statement. Many students find it really difficult to start. Many students find it very difficult to write a good one. Can I get some advice from both of you about how you went about putting your personal statement together, what you did to get some good content in it? So thoughts on personal statement. Felicity, would you go first?
So one thing that you can do, this sort of links into from the start of year 12 as well, is just keep a note of everything that you've done, because it sounds quite obvious, but actually when you come to writing your personal statement, it's very easy to have a mind blank over, you know, the Aspire talks you've gone to or various sort of like volunteering you've done. You can sort of forget everything. So if you keep note of it while you go along, then it's really helpful. And another important thing was that they like to see that you've gone beyond your course to do those additional things. So although it could be work experience, sometimes it's even just reading a book or a paper related, that you've taken something from a lesson and gone beyond. And I think then it shows you're actually really interested in that subject. So I just tried to consider yes, what I had done, but also like what skills they'd given me and how that had gone beyond just doing my A levels.
Yeah. Megan, any thoughts to add to that?
Yeah, pretty much the same, but I almost made a list of all the reasons why I was so interested in biomedical science, and went to, you know, I read books, and I just sort of thought, I need to show them why I'm so interested in this, and even just little things like showing them why you would be a good candidate to go on that course. I think I wrote in mine, I've got a part-time job which enabled me to sharpen my maths skills and work in a team. You know, just little things like that that shows why you are perfect to go on that course.
We heard from the current students about how useful they think their EPQ is going to be at university. Can I ask for your reflections now? You did an EPQ, you're at university. Felicity, did it help? Has it been of use to you now you're there?
Yes, I would definitely say so. I feel like I knew at the time that it had given me academic skills, but I hadn't really realised to what extent until I got to university, because for one of my first assignments that I had to do, it was a review and it was 2,000 words. So in comparison to the 6,000 EPQ, other people who had never written a longer essay before, or who hadn't done a subject with coursework or anything, found it quite challenging. But I was keeping in mind it's less than my EPQ was. And then I still had like some of the academic skills that had been mentioned, like referencing or just getting used to reading academic articles with that sort of language. I feel like I had an advantage sort of from the start, because I had something to base my first essay off of, whereas other people who hadn't done it didn't have those skills.
Do you want to say briefly what your EPQ was about?
So my EPQ was about how the NHS can improve their therapy delivery, and specifically looking at digital therapy programmes and how they can complement or replace in-person programmes. Especially I was interested because we just come out of COVID and quite a lot of therapy had gone online. So I wanted to see, with this sort of new emerging area, how it would influence how quickly therapy could be delivered.
Yeah, excellent. Megan, have you got anything that you'd like to add about EPQ?
Yeah, it was absolutely was helpful. I had to write a 1,500 words report about coronaviruses and their different testing techniques. And I found that while some of my friends were struggling a bit, I was very comfortable using Google Scholar, you know, reading the scientific articles that look really scary at first because they're just full of all this scientific jargon that looks like it doesn't make sense. But and, you know, referencing, I had all those skills already, which made it a lot easier.
Yeah, brilliant, excellent. That's such good news. I'm so pleased that it did help you when you got there. I want to wrap things up with just a couple of questions about your first term as undergraduates now. So you're in term 2, semester 2, maybe of year 1. Go, if you wouldn't mind, cast your mind back to your first week at uni. So I'd love you to share some thoughts, some experiences about what that first week was like, either good or bad, you know, things that you had to overcome, or positive things. So Felicity, if you wouldn't mind starting off, what is your strongest memory of that first week at uni?
So my first week of lessons, we just finished our Freshers Week. So Freshers Week I've really particularly enjoyed it, and it was good, just for bonding experiences with the people in my flat. We cooked dinner together on one night, and that was a great way to get to know each other. So I particularly enjoyed that. So then having to get back into the routine of going to lessons again the week after was a bit of a shock, but I feel like I've adapted quite well, and it was definitely a sort of a new experience, but one that I was like keen to explore. So
are you in a flat with a number of other students? You share a kitchen, is that how it works?
Yes, there's actually quite a few people in my flat. There's not necessarily this many in all accommodation, but there's 10 of us and we all share a kitchen.
Wow, okay.
So that's quite a few. There are smaller accommodations as well, but my one's one of the bigger ones.
Okay. Megan, so what are your domestic arrangements like, your living arrangements?
Yeah, so I'm living in a shared kitchen and shared bathroom situation, and I feel like I just need to say this now, it is not as bad as it sounds. Shared bathroom, don't be put off by it, it's really not that bad. Okay. There's 7 of us, but we've had a couple of dropouts, so there's 5 of us in here currently.
All on different courses?
Yeah, so we've got 1 medicine, 1 history, and 2 computer science.
Okay, and your memories of your first week?
Just how quickly, even though it sounds really scary, like just how quickly you make friends. Like it's crazy because people just come up to you and then you just sort of start talking and it all just like goes from there. So I'm living with one of my friends next year that I met in my first practical, and a month later we signed a contract on a house. Like it all just happens so quickly, but it really does just make it that bit easier because it,
So
you're
already making your
a little
living
bit
arrangements
lonely.
for next. You're already making living arrangements for next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is there such a thing, Megan, as a typical day at university, or is every day very, very different for you?
My days are quite different. I was quite busy today, but normally I have 1 or 2 lectures a day, and then I've got the rest of the day to sort of to myself to study or just to, just relax.
Yeah, yeah. And Felicity, we alluded to the fact you just finished a lecture at something like 6:25 or something like that. Is there a typical day for you, or is every day very different?
Normally they vary quite a lot. Like Megan was saying, I have between sort of 1 or 3 things in a day. I only have a late finish once a week because I have a 4:30 till 6:30, and sometimes it finishes a bit before. But not all of my classes are lectures. I have lectures and then I have tutorials, which are smaller group sessions. So you get a bit more one-to-one tuition for that. And then we also have lab practicals, which are usually in an actual sort of science department or in a computing room.
Yeah. Okay. Last question from me, and then we'll see whether there's any questions from our audience. And it is really just a request. Is there anything else from either of you that you would want to say? Any advice or comments that perhaps our questions so far haven't given you a chance to say? So, Felicity, anything you want to add that we've not talked about?
I would say, especially when writing your personal statement or applying to different universities, just being confident in your abilities, because obviously different people have different experiences, but really just trying to elaborate on what you've done and focusing on what skills they've given you, because I feel like you could have had a part-time job or done a really lengthy work experience, but as long as you talk about the skills, you can sort of try and weigh them up together.
Yeah. And Megan, anything finally from you?
Yeah, I would just say it's steering away from the personal statement thing a bit, but just remember to sort of like look after yourself, because obviously you build up to this for so long, you do your A-levels, you have all this work, and then you get here and just allow yourself the time to adjust to it, because you're living away from home. You have to cook, clean and wash for yourself. Just allow yourself that time to adjust to it.
Yeah, really brilliant, excellent advice, and thank you very much for your comments this evening. It's inspiring to hear. I'm really pleased that you're both enjoying yourselves. I'm glad that the EPQ has in some small way set you up for your studies at undergraduate level. That's everything that we wanted to say so far, but I think we're going to give an opportunity for any questions that might have come up. So Emma, is there any questions that you want to field?
I'm afraid there aren't any questions in the Q&A section at the moment, but maybe they'll start filtering through now. Did you have any kind of commonly asked questions that have come up before when we've done these events?
Yeah, well, one of the questions that parents and students will often ask is, I don't know anything about UCAS. How do I go about applying? How many universities can I apply to? How do I choose? So there's kind of a lot in there. So let me just pick out a few key points. For most courses, and the exception is veterinary science, medicine and dentistry, you'll apply to 5 universities. 5 sounds a lot, but it's not. And so what our advice tends to be with students, and actually it was alluded to earlier on a little bit, is a long list of 8 or 10, from which you choose a short list of 5. And you would be happy to go to any of those 5. So there's no point making an application to a university that you don't think you're going to like. You really ought to be able to find yourself 5 universities that you really would be really pleased to go to. Out of those 5, you probably should choose 3 that are going to make you offers right at the very top of your predicted grades, and 2 that are a bit lower. So you get a chance to make an acceptance of a firm choice and then an insurance. And the other big piece of advice that comes through every year from students, if they're thinking about applying to university, is, if at all possible, go and visit them. And in fact, I might even be bolder than that and say, make damn sure you go and visit them. You're going to spend 3 years, or in some cases 4, 5, 6, 7 years in a town or city, and if you haven't been to see it before you go, you really are running the risk of not liking it. The university itself might turn out to be great, the course might be great, you might not like the town or the city, you might not like the fact it's too far away from home or it's too near to home. So all of those logistical things will only ever be resolved by visiting the place. And the kinds of things that you've been hearing from Felicity and Megan about how the place feels, you're not going to get that until you actually go. So we often get questions about that. 5 universities you have to apply to. Make sure you'd be happy to go to all 5. Look carefully about the offers they're going to make you and the typical grades that they'll expect, and relate them to your forecast grades when you're at college. And get in the car or get on the train, get mum, dad, brother, sister, auntie, uncle, friend to drive you or drive yourself, and go and have a look at them, ideally in the summer before you make your application. Yeah, so next summer is going to be a travel summer.
I totally agree with that, and that's the thing that's come out with students that I've worked with over the years, that you need to see what it feels like to be there, and whether you can actually picture yourself living there for 3 or 4 years, maybe, depending on what they're doing. So I think that's a really important point. Right, we've got some questions come through now. So the first one, can you take part in CUP without doing the EPQ?
Yes. Each of the 5 aspects of the Aspire programme that I went through are self-contained. You can do 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 or none of them. So they're all completely self-contained. If you like the idea of doing CUP but you don't want an EPQ, that's absolutely fine. If you want to do an EPQ but not take part in CUP, that's absolutely fine. If you just want to attend the Aspire lectures, that's absolutely fine as well. Think of each of those 5 elements as separate, self-contained aspects.
Perfect. So that covers one of the other questions about whether we have to do an EPQ. So that's no. How much support do you get for your EPQ? It's another question that's come through.
Good question. So if you do it with me as part of Aspire, then you will get a weekly session of 1.5 hours, and we will take at least 2 terms on doing it. Now, that tends not to quite be enough time to do it, so there is some time in your own time, and we may go into the autumn term to finish it. So a weekly support slot from me or a subject specialist. And you will get regular and frequent feedback. So what we didn't talk about when we were talking to the students is the number of times they may write a draft. They get detailed feedback, they rewrite, redraft and so on. So extensive support. In the end, though, it is an independent study piece of work. So I think what I think of the supervisor's role is to advise students how to go about doing it, to give them feedback on what they write, but the responsibility for writing that academic piece of work lies squarely with them.
Absolutely. It's a big responsibility, isn't it, to take on, because it is so independent, and that's why it's such good preparation for university. Yeah. Somebody else has asked how the point system works, so the UCAS point system.
Okay, so grades A star down to E carry points. Don't quote me because I can't remember all of them. If you get an A grade at A level, it's 48 points. There's eight points between them, and so they go down from 48 for an A and so on. And an EPQ is worth half that. So if you got an A in your A level, you get 48 points. If you got an A in your EPQ, you get 24 points. Typically, Russell Group universities and the top universities will be looking for a range of grades in A's and B's. So in broad brush terms, most of the Russell Group universities will be looking for either 3 A's, 2 A's and a B, and possibly an A star in there as well. Oxford and Cambridge will almost certainly want at least 1 A star amongst the 3 A levels. And one point about this, it's not been asked, but it's worth making this now, is that all universities will make offers based on 3 A levels, not fewer, not more. So some students start talking about wanting to do a 4th A level. There are no university degrees for which 4 A levels are a requirement. 3 A levels is the basis upon which students will be made offers for university. 3 A levels.
Thank you. It's a similar structure in terms of points with BTECs as well, isn't it, in terms of distinctions and distinction stars?
Correct. Yeah, for each one of those grades, there's an equivalent set of UCAS points. And universities will either make you an offer based on grades, 2 A's and a B, or a tariff, a number of points. And that gives you a bit of flexibility then in how you get it.
Yeah, just a thank you to Jess, who's organising the event this evening. She's just put all the points breakdown in the chat for everybody to see. Somebody's asked, what are all the ways to apply to an EPQ, and can you apply to do one in a college interview?
Yes and yes. So let me deal with that. So there are two main ways in which you can do an EPQ. You can do an EPQ as part of this Aspire programme, in which case you'll start it sooner than otherwise. So my current year 12 students started their EPQ 5 weeks ago. If you don't want to be part of Aspire, but you still want to do an EPQ, then you'll start that EPQ in the summer term. So it's just a matter of when you start it and therefore when you finish it. So there's plenty of opportunities for you to do an EPQ. If you'd like to take part in the Aspire programme, and I'll talk briefly about that at the end about how you do that, then once I've got your name on my database, I'll give you all the information you need for EPQ. If you don't want to take part in Aspire, but you later on want to do an EPQ, we will keep contacting you throughout the spring term of year 12, and you'll have an opportunity to opt into an EPQ then. So there are two tranches, if you like, two places for you to get onto an EPQ and finish it, one sooner and one slightly later. But there's plenty of opportunity to do one.
And when we look at progression routes for going into from year 12 into 13, that's one of the ways that we'll sort of publicise the EPQ as well and give you all the information you need. Yeah. There's been a lot of talk about science-based subjects, but what about the arts or languages? Can we still take part in CUP or EPQ?
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me give you a couple of examples of some of the EPQs that are currently happening just now. I've got one student who is comparing modern art with ancient art and making some judgments of the relative value and worth of those. I've got another student who's diving into the ethics and logistics of fast fashion. So I wouldn't want people to think that the EPQ is exclusively about science-based subjects. I marked an EPQ this year that was a superb EPQ on the symbolism and meaning of Handmaid's Tale.
Oh,
so art literature is just as fruitful an area for EPQ as science and social sciences are.
Definitely, and I know that from my experience with EPQ work, marking students' creative writing, so a creative writing portfolio. Can you just talk through the different elements of EPQ, because it's not all strictly dissertation based, is there? There's different ways that you can produce your work.
Yeah, so a dissertation is the one that most of our students probably do, or certainly most of the ones that I supervise do. So that's the 6,000 to 6,500 extended essay, basically. We call it a dissertation based upon academic reading. You have 5 or 6 academic sources and you write an extended piece based upon a question or a hypothesis. That's the dissertation. If your title suggests that you might want to do some primary research, you might want to do some survey, some questionnaire, you might want to go out and collect some actual data, then that's called a research investigation. That tends to have a smaller write-up, that's about 3,000 to 3,500 words, but you could do a research investigation. Another one is an artifact. That can be physical, it could be a piece of music, it could be a piece of drama, it could, in the case of 2 students this year, be a piece of digital work. So I've got one student writing an app and another student creating a computer game. So it can be a physical artifact, or it can be a performance. So a student who's doing music, for example, or drama, could create a piece of music, a piece of drama, a piece of poetry, and as an artifact, and then they do something like a 3,000 word piece of writing alongside it. So it can range from a physical performance or artifact through to a piece of research to an extended essay.
Thank you. And somebody's asked how you would come up with a question for an EPQ.
We start with your interest. So over the course of 3 weeks at the start of this term, I gradually got students to think about what they were interested in, whether that was a particular aspect of their A-level that we're doing, or a topic that crossed a number of A-levels, or a topic that had nothing to do with their A-levels. They were just interested in it. So we start with that. Then we decide whether that was best suited towards a dissertation, research assignment, artifact, and so on. So then we create the format of the EPQ, and then having done that, we decide upon a title. And so at this stage now, all 21 of the 22 year 12 students have got a working title, and it's taken about 3, 4, 5 weeks to get it, but it is very much based upon what they are interested in. My job is to shape it with their interests in mind, so I can give them a bit of advice on what's likely to give them the highest possible mark. And the dissertations will more often than not tend to be in the form of questions. I'll give you a couple of examples. So this year in year 12, one student is looking at the logistics and the physiological impacts of deep space exploration with a view to Mars landings. Another student, as I've said, is looking at fast fashion. I've got students looking at the ethics and morality of animal testing, a wide range of topics.
Lovely, thank you. I think you've sort of slightly alluded to sort of when you would complete the EPQ, but somebody's asked what the deadline for the EPQ would be.
Okay, so if a student starts it at the start of the spring term, so straight after Christmas, the hope and the intention is that they complete it before the summer term, before we finish the end of year 12. If they don't, then we can continue into the first term of year 13, but we hope to get it finished before the mock exams in December. So I would say that phase 1 for one group of students would be from January to December of year 12 going into year 13. For the other group of students who start it slightly later, it starts in the summer term of year 12 and finishes in the spring term of year 13.
Yeah, okay, lovely, thank you.
That's clear.
I think we're probably coming to the end of the questions, and we're definitely coming towards the end of the time this evening. I think it's been really lovely to hear from the students about their experiences and whether people end up doing CUP, Aspire, any of those aspects. They've given some really good advice about managing time and sticking to deadlines and getting organised right from the word go. So it's been really lovely to hear that. Just as a point of interest for everybody, I think Stephen put his email address on the last slide, so that will come out on the video for you. Thank you, Jess. If you've got any questions, please send those through to us. You can find out more information on the website. So you've got Stephen's email contact. You can contact us at the college if you have any questions, but this presentation has been video, so it will be sent out to you after the event, and you can watch it again through and see if there's anything else you want to pick up with us then. But I think we're coming towards the end now, so thank you to everybody for attending. I hope you've got a lot of information out of it and a lot of inspiration from our amazing students that have taken part this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.